Enter madman, stage left. The audience rises and holds their breath. They let the vampires into their house, pretend they don't see when the teeth come out. Put a band-aid on their throat. No one wants to rock the boat, and no one wants to talk about it. You're not supposed to talk about it. The curtain rises and the players come out. Webs of lies spinning from their mouths. Start looking, listen for a little while. Attention to the men behind the curtain. Just look away when you see the blood spurting down to a steady drip.
Hello and welcome to the Iron Mountain Hour. It is Wednesday, April the 20th, 2022. We are coming to you live from the Iron Mountain in Carter County, Tennessee. My name is Cliff. I'm joined via Skype by Tim. How's it going, Tim?
Pooper scooper couldn't be any
All
better.
right. That sounds pretty good to me. Hey, listen. Yeah, it's we had our Sunday show. We went pretty long. It got split into a couple parts, but I think we got into some interesting conversations in there. We got into some news and current events and debunking some of the, I don't know, it used to be called woke stuff about, Easter and Jesus. That's the kind of stuff that used to be called woke, wasn't it? When you would say, oh, look, man, this is really the symbolism behind Easter. It's really pagan, and we were controlled by the church to make us do this, and this. But woke kind of has a different meaning nowadays, doesn't it?
Yeah, the very first time I heard woke referred to I think it was like a 9/11 meme. Maybe it wasn't even a meme. It was more it more referenced people that were conspiratorial minded, or what even conspiratorial minded. Just we're aware that the news doesn't always report the truth necessarily. But I guess at some point in time, like, that meaning just eventually went away as it became more about social justice, I guess. I can't remember who it was. I think it was Thomas Sowell. I can't remember. But it was one of the black guys who speaks a lot better than I do, who was talking about how pretty much every good intention, like grassroots movements, gets hijacked at some point for people who see how they can make money off of it.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of examples of that. One particular was the Tea Party movement that started in the wake of the 2008 election. There was a very small party called the Boston Tea Party that ran a presidential candidate in at least the 2008 elections that I remember. But after the election, when Barack Obama became president, that name was kind of co-opted by more mainstream Republican neocon types who kind of just brought, the name Tea Party in to mean, well, let's just go back to the way things were before Barack Obama. And that's not what the idea of the Tea Party was originally. And then you had things like the Occupy Wall Street movement, and you had the World Trade Organization protests in Seattle in '99. That a lot of those things were co-opted and taken over by violent people that a lot of people say were agent provocateurs who were causing, giving these people a bad name. And then you saw those movements grow into things like Antifa today. That's kind of what, and a lot of people will say that Antifa, is not an organized group, and that's true, but it is a shared mindset, and you see them do very similar things all across the country. So whether they're organized or not, for all intents and purposes, they act as if they're one group. Or maybe it's just a core group of members that go all over the country doing these things. I don't know, but
I often, I guess I don't hang out with the modern communists enough to know exactly what the history of some things are, but I have looked at the history of Antifa a little bit, and it's been around since I think it was in
Mm-hmm.
Germany, and it's been around for
The
way longer
Antifaschist
than people.
Action, yeah, they were a communist, anti-fascist, anti-Hitler group back then.
I think what people lose is context. You know, like they don't even think about what that group was doing. You know what I mean? Like it's like when people try to claim like Che Guevara is like a hero of theirs, and I've never, and it's just something I actually have taken the time to. I ask Cuban guys like what they think about Che because I'm so
Mm-hmm.
confused when you see like wearing Che clothing. There's not a single Cuban I've ever met that was like, yeah, they've all been real consistent across the board. Yeah, fuck that guy. So I'm real confused when people pick these weird heroes. Is all I guess,
Well,
you
I think
know?
they're given to us in popular culture, and they're kind of made to seem edgy and cool, and something that
Yeah, I guess.
do what?
I
Oh,
said, yeah, I guess. Yeah, I guess I just don't understand the logic behind it because, like, you know, like I don't know, like I don't. I guess I'm saying like on a level, like I think we have to acknowledge that instead of demonizing some of the idiots that are running around in masks and stuff, and have to kind of like it's not you shouldn't be mad at the black people in the street because Black Lives Matter was buying mansions. You know, you should be mad
at
at
the
the
leadership.
leadership, and you should be mad at whatever got them in the streets to begin with. Because you brought up the
Mm-hmm.
Occupy movements, and when the Occupy movement started, they probably didn't start to be essentially the Wild West camps they eventually turned into. Like you know, like it's hard to get people to do things without motivation, but you know, on some level, things get corrupted.
Well, when it
You know,
started off, it was a mixture of like socialists and anti-Wall Street people, and then along with that, it was libertarians and kind of more Austrian economics people who were against the Federal Reserve bailing out the banks and saying it was bad monetary policy. And then you had, the group that were saying, these greedy bankers shouldn't be allowed to exist. You had a little bit of all that, and then it kind of just became eventually just a I don't know even what you would call it. It kind of they tried to organize it towards something, but it just kind of fell apart on them. But it seemed like like you remember when the Chaz or the Chop or whatever it was up there in Seattle, they took over those few city blocks and tried to have a
mm-hmm.
commune. And I always said I'm all for people having a commune. I'm not for people violently taking other people's property and making that their commune. That I don't condone. But I'm all for people if they want to do that, especially on that's really the best way to have a socialist or communist society. Really, is to start it on a local level where everybody's accountable and nobody can really lay around and not work and have the farm still run. But
Yeah,
but yeah, I don't really think that's the people in there who are in these scenes tend to not really be serious about hard work towards anything, and they ultimately you may have well or good intentions, but they either get led into something else or they just kind of give up at it or aimlessly wander around. Is what it seems like with the Occupy Wall Street movement eventually.
do you think it's all? I mean, like, do you think? I guess like I have a hard time believing that any movement that gets on that level didn't have purity behind it on some level. So it's like,
Absolutely, it did.
do you think? Yeah, do you think some of those guys, like, what percent of it do you think are people who really? Okay, I guess me phrase it this way: many of your Antifa people are pretty illogical and sometimes downright right belligerent when you try to talk to them about why they believe and do the things that they do, and no different than if you met somebody who was, like throwing rocks at like abortion clinics or something like that. Like they would have the same trouble
Mm-hmm.
explaining what they're doing. And I'm just wondering on what percent, I guess, non-radicalized people are just people who can logically tell you why we need to do X, Y, and Z, and they're not the ones that are out there making it look bad, that are doing weird stuff like finding out a guy gets killed in one city, so we burn down a Taco Bell in
Mm-hmm.
another. Yeah, does that make any
Absolutely.
sense? Like, I guess, like, where are the logical Antifa members? Because I would really like
Oh
to
no,
figure out. I would like to figure out what their perspective is on like what went wrong in their movement for them to behave that way. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they all do feel like everything's going according to
well, I feel
plan.
like a lot of the well-intentioned people who are in that group or mindset, a lot of them have been taught that everyone's a Nazi. Like everything that you do is white supremacist or Nazi, or it's from right down to saying math is racist. There's literally article.
It's all those
I'm sorry.
people. Do you think it's all of those kinds of people though? Because like I don't want to immediately make Antifa and I guess SJW be synonymous
No,
because I don't really think they
no, I
are.
don't think they
Like
are either.
I know a lot of SJW people were kind of I know they kind of absorbed themselves into Antifa until Antifa got some heat and then immediately all of them suddenly unlocked their local chapter of Antifa
Hmm.
on Facebook. Um, but I don't want to. I'm trying to figure out like there's got to be like an Antifa member that's not got like green hair and seven pronouns and
Oh
you know
yeah,
what I'm saying? Like
no,
there's got to
there
be
are out there.
some
I've
Antifa
I've seen
that
some of
can.
those guys and women out there. There are some of them who can give you a reason why they're doing these things, and again, it's a lot of times it refers to things like the failings of crony capitalism and things that I agree with them on, and then you get down to the whole. Um, but a lot of it that you hear ends up being back to just you are a fascist. If you don't want to, if you don't think what I say is a good idea, then you're a fascist. And now, since you're a fascist, that's the same as being a Nazi, and I have the right to punch you in the face. But that's kind of more of your. I would say that's more of your weak-minded individuals who are just looking for somewhere to belong, and that's somewhere that that they found acceptance. Maybe I think those are the kinds of folks who you see a lot of the ones out foaming at the mouth and uh, doing this kind of stuff that you see in all the videos that mostly get shared around because of the absurdity of them. I'm sure that the logical members of Antifa probably don't get shared around out there, but regardless, I don't see a lot of stopping fascism going on from Antifa. If anybody was around for 2020 and 2021, where was Antifa then?
Well, I kind of ran out of reasons to be
No,
out
I,
there
I
doing
mean,
it.
I mean,
Like
seriously, if you're trying to stop fascism, you've got a pharmaceutical giants and the United States government and the whole media empire working together to mandate pharmaceutical products and that people stay in their homes and that they shut down their businesses and stop their whole way of lives. If that's not fascism, then what the hell? Um, Mussolini, who was the OG fascist, he defined fascism as the merger of corporate and state power, and that's really what we have seen for a long time in America, really. Um, but especially over the last 2 years, we really saw that power be used in an authoritarian manner, and that's the kind of thing that I thought Antifa was organizing against. But I really didn't see a lot of them out against that kind of thing. I saw them out badgering people for not wearing masks and things like that. Now maybe there were others that didn't make it into my news feed. I can't see everything. Who knows? But let's move on to the topics of the night. It is 4:20, so you know what that means. It is Hitler's birthday, and we had a senator. Just kidding. We're going to talk about Hitler's birthday in just a second. It's National Marijuana Day, and I've got a couple marijuana-related stories. We are in Tennessee here, and we had back in March 31st. There's just so many news stories. We didn't talk about this one at the time, but there was a bill to fully legalize marijuana, but it is effectively dead for the 2022 legislative session. So they are this paper WATE says that Tennessee could be left behind as the states surrounding it are passing some form of cannabis legislation. So, it really could. We got areas like Virginia that have already legalized. So, you've got revenue that you're missing out on. I'm just talking from you as a state lawmaker's perspective. You love to tax things, don't you? You love to take tax money for everything under the sun and find new things to spend it on to try to sweeten the pot to get people to vote for you or to give to your friends or whatever it is you do. Just think about all the taxes you collect from it. Now, personally, I think that, people should get it from wherever they want. I don't think there should have to be any kind of taxation or regulation on the thing. It's a damn plant, people. And do what?
I had a theory on marijuana in Tennessee because, I don't think people know, but Tennessee is probably in the definitely top 5, maybe top 3 for most backwards marijuana laws. We're beaten by almost everybody except for, I think, one of the extreme northern states, one of the Dakotas, I think Mississippi, and maybe Alabama. But we have the harshest penalties. We have just, and I think that's one of the reasons. And I guess the question I have for that is, do you think that's what all this D8 and D10 and THCO and all this stuff is about? Is maybe because they know that Tennessee is so super anti-weed that maybe they're trying to warm the population up to the idea of even having it around them? Because you can literally go to the gas station right now and buy it.
It could be. I've heard that lawmakers are looking to try to ban that kind of stuff, which wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, but with marijuana and cannabis and drugs in general, I think it relates back to the idea of personal freedom and independence, and the idea to decide what goes into your body. Just like you shouldn't. The government is not allowed to force you to ingest something that you don't want to. They say they can as long as it's not experimental, but I don't think they have that right in any case. I think I have the right to reject anything, and just like I have the right to defend myself with deadly force against someone who is trying to harm me or my family, I also think I have the right to decide what I put in my own body. If I can decide to kill somebody to save my life, I think I should be able to decide to reject or accept anything that I want to put in there. So that's the main thing that I have.
Wow.
It's an issue of bodily autonomy. I think it's just as important as something like the Second Amendment. And with bodily autonomy, the idea that I can choose to reject you giving me something into my body, some substance that I don't know what it is, and I can reject that, just like I can do that. That also means I can put what I want into my body. Yeah.
I almost feel like it's a wag the dog situation where they've made everybody so convinced that it's about autonomy or whatever. They've got everybody so word confused that we don't think that maybe it's about money all the time, it's such a weird hill for Tennessee to want to die on is marijuana. It's just a really weird hill, and I have to feel like there's somebody getting their palms greased by delaying the gravy train a little bit, or something. Something's got to be going on.
We've seen in Tennessee they've largely stopped arresting people for marijuana as a primary offense. Usually, when someone gets arrested for or gets charged, I mean, if somebody gets charged with a lot, that's usually
Yeah, I guess here's my question to put context on this: the guy who made Kellogg's cornflake, not the guy who made it nationwide popular, but the guy who made cornflakes was trying to find a way. He was obsessed with trying to find ways to make boys not masturbate.
He owned an orphanage, didn't he?
Right. So, how many of the people? So those nut jobs exist, right? And they're very often very motivated
man. I don't know if
people.
I would call him crazy. Can you imagine running an orphanage for teenage boys?
But if you read his memoirs and stuff, he gets a pretty insane. He took things too far.
I know,
Sex for procreation only, because I think I remember he was a Latter-day Saint or
John
something.
Harvey Kellogg. He was, I think, a Latter-day Saint.
Was
Or
he?
Seventh-day
I guess
Adventist. That's what it was.
how many people in Congress and Senate, and how many people are dying on this crazy cannabis hill because they're that passionate about not having the flower? Like, it really makes me curious sometimes about how much of the world is run by like ideology and zeal, and how much of it is run by greed. Because those crazy people do exist that are just completely based on principle.
Well, I think a lot of people who, their main concern is that they don't want to see children get hooked on drugs, and they've been told so many negative things about it. Though they've been told everybody about how it's a gateway drug, and the marijuana was scapegoated for people choosing harder drugs, when in reality those people are going to harder drugs anyway. Marijuana was just the first thing they could get their hands on. So it's
How did you get all the way to Congress or Senate thinking that, though? That really
I don't know that
baffles
they
me.
necessarily think that.
That were just like,
I think they're probably trying to please
well, that's,
constituency who believe that, who they've convinced of that.
I guess I don't
I'm
know.
sure you've seen the movie Grass. It's probably 25 years old now. It's kind of the story of of marijuana illegalization in America, and how it got to be where it was. Narrated by
Yeah,
Woody Harrelson, and I'm sure anybody out there who's seen that remembers the name Harry J. Anslinger. And he had multiple. I mean, his motives were financial, and they were,
yeah,
yeah,
dude.
and
Like I know. I guess my biggest question is like that was the 30s or whatever. Like I'm just confused at like how we're hitting 2022, and you've got people. And I'm not talking about like Joe Bill who lives in a trailer who's walking around thinking marijuana makes black men rape white women and it makes them go crazy. I'm not talking about some guy who actually his granddad watched Reefer Madness and now he's been walking around for
he thinks
60
you're gonna play
years
the
thinking
piano.
that it's, it makes you want to play the piano and grin like the Joker and go, ha, 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 I'm going to rape you. So that's crazy. We think that, but people really do think that. I guess my question is like, do you really think people? I don't know, man. Like, I guess that's just one. Like, how much of it is driven by greed, and how much of it is people who really? It's just really hard for me to believe that there's a lot of people who really believe that reefer madness stuff in
I
2022.
guess they're still out
guess.
there, but you have
Yes.
to admit there is a lot of harm caused by people getting on drugs, and all the different things that entails, with people losing their families, and robbing people, and
Yeah.
going getting sick and skinny, and just basically turning into other people. So people see that kind of thing, and they don't want that to happen to anybody they know, and they figure the best way to do it is that should be illegal, and they don't want that around the people that they know. And you can kind of see why they've been convinced that that's the way to go. But maybe with time, hopefully, and the states around us legalizing and decriminalizing, that people will see, hey, this is not going to be the end of the world. Maybe like you said with Delta 8, hey, this is not going to be the end of the world. Just like they did with,
Yeah.
as you mentioned in an episode, Tim, when they finally allowed liquor to be sold here in Carter County.
Yeah. We were like pretty much like everybody in the entire region of Carter County was just driving across the county line to buy something they could buy here. Like drive 5 minutes and go pay give taxes to a completely other county
Vacant
for like 2 decades at least.
Vacant Josh says it was a health spa. Let's see, what were we talking about? That would have been, and B said the awful chemicals they put in our food are way worse for you than smoking some marijuana. Yeah, that's for sure. That is for sure.
Yeah.
Hey, we've been talking about 420. We've been talking about fascists. This is from the news last week, and I put it into the stack for us to go into on Sunday, but I'm so glad we missed it, because it happens that we can discuss it on 420, Hitler's birthday. East Tennessee senator invokes Hitler during debate on penalizing homeless. In Knoxville, Republican lawmaker, he made world news this week So we got somebody from Knoxville making international news when he cited Adolf Hitler as an example of someone who escaped homelessness during a debate over a bill that would expand penalties for people who camp on public property. So, so let me get down to his quote down here.
Okay, go. I already love the logic, but go
I
ahead.
know. I want to give you a little lesson on homelessness. In 1910, Hitler decided to live on the streets for a while. So for 2 years, Hitler lived on the streets and practiced his oratory and body language and how to connect with the masses, and then went on to lead a life that got him in the history books. So a lot of these people, it's not a dead end. They can come out of these homeless camps and have a productive life, or in Hitler's case, a very unproductive life. I support this bill. Well, that seems like a good way to get that bill blown all to hell, doesn't it? But what are your thoughts, Tim?
Well, first of all, it's almost South Parkish. You know what I'm saying? Because it's comical and true at the same time. So you don't even know if it's satire. It's so true. Is what's funny about it. Well, it's almost the same kind of logic as they try to use for like abortion, though. Like, or I guess pro-lifers, even though my stance on that is pretty wiggly, if I'm being honest.
Same.
We need to stop abortion because every day we could be killing an Einstein. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, we got to kill all the homeless people because one of those suckers could turn out to be the next Hitler. We're going to have a zero COVID policy and a zero Hitler policy, too. Picture Klaus saying that.
Yeah, there you go. That. Oh man. Well, this Mr. Nicely was requested a comment from WATE 6 on your side, but their request was not returned. And opponents of the bill argues it does not address the causes of homeless and could make it more difficult for people experiencing homeless to find work if they have a felony conviction on their record. Yeah, it doesn't really. I don't think the idea is to help the people there. It doesn't sound like to me. It sounds more like it is to make life more convenient for everybody else down there. And I understand. Oh, the Kellogg guy had a health spa. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
It's inspiration. Yeah, it was huge. It's enormous, and it was also one of the inspirations for the giant ass spa that's in A Cure for Wellness. If you've never seen that movie, which takes place in Europe, but it's one of the inspirations for the size. And how mad that dude was about the purity of your body and stuff.
Well, okay, the Battle Creek Sanitarium is what that was.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Michigan?
It was in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Really?
Yeah.
And it was started on health principles advocated by the Seventh-day Adventist Church and was managed by Dr. John Harvey Kellogg. Okay.
Yeah. You got an image of that sucker?
Yeah,
it's
I'm
huge.
pulling it up right now. There it is. And it was destroyed by fire in 1902. Man, buildings like that, I mean, it just blows my mind when I see buildings like that from, over 100 years ago. What happened to architecture now? I mean, you see the way they build, like, most like university buildings now and hospital buildings. There's just no I mean, this actually has some design to it and this is a health spa, I guess, which I guess they still do today. But I don't know, just a lot of these buildings back then just really blow my mind with how big they were able to make them and how stylized they were for and you go back, hundreds of years and some of those cathedrals and things. You look at those and then you look at a lot of the buildings that get built today and they might be taller, but I don't find them near as impressive.
Yeah, it's I don't know, I have a theory on that, but it's not very solid. But what you're talking about is like what inspires a lot of the conspiracy group that thinks the history has been changed and that we've actually devolved a little bit, and that's why we can't build the same,
Well, we can't go back to the moon. Can't go back to the moon, Tim.
Well, do you think like maybe this is like a weird growing pains era for us? Because it's almost like I don't know if this is a weird example or not. Like, do you remember like Castlevania? Like, like from NES to 64, it pretty much stayed the same game. You know, just the
Yeah.
graphics got better. So when you went from Nintendo to the Super Nintendo, it was like a way cooler game just because the graphics and music
And you
got
could
better.
swing the whip
But
down
then,
too.
yeah,
That was
yeah,
that
like a
was
lot of
that was that
control
was the
over.
best part for me.
That was the Castlevania 4 is the
Oh
best
yeah.
one in my opinion. Then you jump to Nintendo 64, and even though it's supposed to be a superior console, where the 3D graphics just aren't quite there yet, that game is absolute
Yeah.
dog shit. It's not scary. It's not fun. The controls are wonky. The music's almost non-existent. And so just because, you know, we've moved into 3D and we've got polygons and the soundtrack is 64-bit, it's still not better than the other games, any of them, because it's just not
Yeah.
there yet. It's like a growing. We can build these giant skyscrapers, but we can't build
That's
a
a good way to
pyramid.
put it. That's a good analogy.
I don't know
I
if it
think
is
it
or
is.
not. It's just like
Well, maybe
at this
not. That's not why,
where
but it's a similar situation for sure.
yeah. Have you seen VR? Like a lot of VR
No, not
yet?
really.
Like I've not been
I
in
mean,
VR, but
I've
I've
done
seen
like a
clips and stuff.
VR like roller coaster, but that's just a 360 video that you can turn your head in. I've not done any of the like VR. I did a VR game in the mall there. They had Vision Quest, but the games were they were not like AAA quality games for a console or PC at all. They were like kind of your stuff that you get free, you know, in the not in the Steam store, you know, on they were okay and it was neat, but if to really enjoy it, you'd want some AAA games put in there. Vacant Josh says he thought bland foods would keep you from, as Clarence Carter said, stroking. Yeah, that's right. But what were you asking about VR there?
Oh, I was trying to find a connection for just like growing pains about how you can see the potential
Yeah.
in something.
Well,
Like, or you can see how it could possibly get somewhere really crazy, but it's not quite there yet. It's cool, but it's not Matrix cool just yet.
well, to go back to your Nintendo 64 analogy, look at Nintendo 64 to where 3D graphics are now with the PS5 and the PC and
Yeah,
you know the Xbox. It's definitely come a long way, and the games are definitely playable now. And you know they've made a lot of really killer games since then, and really taken advantage of the technology. So I think we could see more of that as we go in other areas of society. But it does seem like the whole space travel thing is taking a while, and the architecture. I mean, if you look in places like Dubai, where they're building these huge towers, now those things are pretty elegant, but I'm just thinking of the more, you know, the way people used to build the library, the town library, the hospital. You know, they used to be, they used to stand out a lot more than they do now. It's almost like they're just as bland and um, not even utilitarian because it's mostly cheap construction too. So
have you seen like some of the issues that they have in Dubai?
I've seen some of them. I'm not sure about which ones you mean.
I mean, like other than like human rights violations or
Yeah.
something like that. I'm talking about like you know Dubai. When you get there, like the whole point of Dubai is look how amazing the city is because a lot of it's new wealth,
Mm-hmm.
relatively, you know. And so they're like a race to like build these giant skyscrapers. Like, look at my building, look how nice it is. But they were in such a race to build these giant skyscrapers. Now the city is like there's such a top level over top of it. They never built a sewer system, and so all of these giant skyscrapers are running off of essentially super giant versions of septic tanks. So every day when the tourists are coming into Dubai to party, the other side of the street is full of septic tank moving trucks that are hauling millions of gallons of poop and pee out of Dubai. They didn't build a
Wow.
septic system first, like New York. So they've got this giant ass New York looking style city, and they didn't think to put a septic
Wow.
system in.
That
They call it like the poop convoy
that's
every
amazing.
morning.
I had no idea.
So yeah, they can alter the weather like 54 days out of the
Yeah.
year, but can't flush your toilet too many times.
Well, here's did we get into the ballot health? They've decided that they are dismantling the pandemic response team, that they will resume it if needed. And, isn't that just such a,
Is this like the drive-in thing that they've been doing, the testing centers
well,
and
yeah,
stuff?
they're shutting down like the vaccination clinics and the testing centers, and they are like going back to, which they already started doing elective surgeries again, but doing a lot of the staffing in the ERs and surging the staffing there and paying overtime, and basically they're just having a board that oversees all that, the pandemic, whatever they call it here. What did they call it? COVID-19 response team. But it's not necessarily permanent. Yeah, I'm sure that they really liked, having the ability to move all that stuff around, and I'm sure they like, being able to keep that on standby where they can basically, make recommendations that shut down our whole life. So yeah, I'm sure they'll keep that near ready, to hit that switch again and give themselves the authority to do these things again. I just had, they we listen to the public health authorities, and one of the reasons I think that people got so frustrated and fed up with a lot of these policies from the public health and a lot of the CDC recommended policies that private healthcare companies such as Ballad went by. A lot of people saw that pretty much right off the bat that these things weren't working as advertised, and begin to look at these things with resentment. And so I really feel like that a lot of these companies and public health institutes did a real disservice to us by continuing to double down on the things that we could see the data that they didn't improve outcomes, but they just continued doubling down and over on them and insisting that we do them anyway, even though data says that it's not helpful. So that's why a lot of people didn't follow a lot of these policies. And then, as you see, this area had one of the worst, actually had one of the worst death rates in Tennessee and Southwest Virginia. Had a higher death rate than a lot of places in the country. And I think that may have some to do with some of the population, being older and in poor health, and other things that we have a little bit more of in this area. But at the end of the day, we still lost a lot of people to this. We had no innovation from. That's what our public health is supposed to be for, is gathering data and deciding what to do. And yeah, they gathered data and decided, well, are we going to have more masks or more masks? Are we going to have, let's get this vaccine. Okay, let's get everybody vaccinated. People don't want to get vaccinated. What else are we going to do? Well, there's nothing else we can do because people won't get vaccinated. They really failed this area because they didn't innovate. All they did was follow recommendations. So that's why we have county governments. That's why we have independent medical groups and corporations, is to be able to innovate and yes, work together in some cases to stop something. But when something's not working and you continue to double down on it, then don't be surprised if people don't feel like it's working, if they don't follow your recommendations, and many of which you did not have the right to implement in the first place. So that's about my rant for that. Anything to say before we move on to Joe Biden?
No, you're
All
good.
right.
Thank you.
So in kind of a surprising to me move, we got from WCYB.com, nuclear energy. This is from the National Desk. Nuclear energy gets a lifeline as Biden administration tries to secure energy supply. Now that's kind of a laughable headline, as we all know. I mean, it's been well documented, well publicized that Joe Biden shut down a lot of the oil production and oil transportation and refinement in the United States on day one, and he bragged that he was going to do so. So the idea that he's trying to secure the energy supply when he could simply undo the actions that he did, that he said would make the energy supply insecure. So he doesn't want us to use fossil fuels. That was his words. He said he was going to do it, and then he's like, "Oh, I don't know. Maybe we should turn on, pump some more money into the nuclear reactors, man. These guys are going broke. They need $6 billion." But you give them $6 billion. If they're $6 billion in the hole, where are they going to be after you give them the $6 billion? The next thing you know, they're going to be $10 billion in the hole. So, is that really going to do anything? Is the nuclear power, or nuclear arsenal, or the nuclear fleet, as they call it, is it still up to the task? It was designed 50, 60 years ago. Why not, allow private companies to build new nuclear plants with modern facilities that are making more energy? If these nuclear plants are failing and in debt to the tune of $6 billion, I mean, how are they in debt anyway? They sell energy, they make energy.
I could not even begin to tell you how in the world that stuff works. Like I saw a guy trying to explain how the Enron scandal even worked. And like when they started talking about energies and most of it was pencil pushing and papers and stuff, I was like, well, hell, I'm lost. Like that's the perfect way to launder money. Like when you're no longer talking about gallons of oil or kilowatts of electricity, you're talking about independent units of, like, of course that's how you can launder money. Of course you can confuse the crap out of people and get them to invest tons of money when you start using like legalese and business
Yeah,
speak. Hunter Biden's at Burisma. Every crooked person seems to be involved in energy or something.
does seem that way, doesn't it?
The Bushes and the Clintons were both connected to oil. That's
Yep.
correct, right? That's also Biden's. That's also the Obamas. That's also the hell, whoever the heck the Bin Laden's family.
Yep, they're oil
They're all
people too. And also oil people, Prince Al-Walid bin Talal of Saudi Arabia. He was in the news the other day because Elon Musk was in the news. Elon Musk, as everybody knows, there's a shot of Elon for 420 there. That's him on Joe Rogan's podcast, smoking a blunt with Joe there in California where it's legal. So Elon partook in such thing. I'm sure you've seen this picture floating around the internet. But Elon Musk, he made an offer to buy Twitter. And he reached out to the Babylon Bee, the Christian satire news site that was banned from Twitter for, I think it was probably COVID disinformation or something like that. And anyway, they were put off. No, I think it was something about, actually, I don't remember, so I'm not going to speak on it. But either way, they were put off of something that Elon agreed with them that they shouldn't have had their account suspended for. And he said, maybe I should buy Twitter. And by God, he went out and bought 9.2% of Twitter, which we talked about on a previous episode. But then he turned around and he made an offer to buy Twitter at $43 billion to buy all the remaining shares of Twitter. And he was going to, Twitter right now, I think is trading about 40 some dollars a share. And that's like, that gets just a little bit higher over than what its initial public offering was. So it hasn't really grown a lot, and it hasn't really been a lot of value monetarily. But what Twitter does do, before I get on to what Twitter does do, is he offered $54 a share for it to buy all the stock in Twitter and take it private. But Twitter, does not make a lot of money. It does make some money, very little, but what it does is it sets the news cycle. That's what a lot of people don't understand. They say, why, what does Twitter even matter? I don't tweet. Who tweets? It's not really a very useful, social media as far as sharing things with your friends and family. But what it is useful for is news sharing and political gossip and shit talking and things like that. And in that way, it sets the news cycle, because when you have mobs of, a company has a social media presence on Twitter, and then you have a mob of right-wing loonies or left-wing loonies, sending you angry tweets, making videos, tagging you in them. You feel like, oh God, what do I do to get these people to leave me alone? And they cave to the mob immediately, and like it's led a lot of people to say that, hey guys, Twitter is not real life. But at the same time, a lot of these news stories that come around, the ones that get shared around Twitter, that's the ones that get pressed on the mainstream media. That's the ones that make a big deal, because that's where these journalists are. And if you don't understand the influence that these journalists have on you people, you got to really start thinking about it, because think about why you talk about the things that you talk about, because they're in the news. So that's why I say that Twitter is important, and it's important to be, that it be a place for people to be able to say what they want, in my opinion, because if that's what sets the news cycle, and that's what, really moves and shakes the world of politics and journalism, then I think it needs to be open to be in, if one side can influence it, then I think, the other side ought to be able to influence it. And largely, more prominent people on the right side have been banned by Twitter, notably President Donald Trump and Alex Jones. I mean, you've had the Babylon Bee, but you've had all kinds of people. Particularly back in the day, you had guys like Milo Yiannopoulos. I'm drawing some blank, but several prominent people have gotten banned from all these different social media sites. Laura Loomer, she was one. And you do have some crazy, more violent lefties and stuff getting removed, and you have, normal lefties getting removed too. But for the most part, as far as prominent people who have a voice and have a large following, it's been people more on the right wing. So I think at least two viewpoints. I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean, we really need a lot more than two viewpoints, but you try to get rid of the two that we have and narrow them down to one.
Well, now they have like what, 5 or 6 different parties in Europe.
Yeah, I mean, different countries too. I mean, you have like, I'm pretty sure a lot of countries in Europe at least have 3 parties, and then, that share power or rotate power, and I believe there are some with more.
I mean, I guess, what do you think the most legitimate third party is in today's politics? Like, I mean, is it Libertarian? I remember, like, the only one that was really considered at one point in time was the Green Party, but I think that was back probably when I was in high
the Green
school.
Party is largely, I mean, they've largely been irrelevant now, because I think the communists, if you will, I don't know if I even want to call them communists. We'll say the neoliberal, fascist, the neoliberal fascist movers and shakers have put their money behind the Democrat Party, as far as I can tell. So the Green Party is somebody who siphons, actual, well-intentioned people who maybe realize that the Democrat Party is being controlled by corporate interests, just like the Republican Party, and they, so the Democrats don't want that. I mean, the Democrats and the Republicans control, both sides of the media, basically. Most of the mainstream media is either Democrat or Republican oriented, so they don't want to cede ground to a party such as Libertarians on, you don't see a lot of Libertarians on Fox News. You see, I mean, you don't see a lot of Green Party or communists on MSNBC, because they're pretty much held down by the Democrat and Republican parties, respectively.
Do you think that you think any of the I have to think that, like, this is, I guess it's just how my mind works. I have to think that if I think ahead, that people in government would have to think ahead too,
Whoops.
I can't remember what we were talking about earlier, about how the government stays ahead of things. Like, do you remember the raid on Area 51? I think we briefly talked about that a while back.
Yeah, well, I don't think we talked about it on the show, but I do remember it.
Okay, the raid on Area 51, if I broke it down real quickly, a bunch of people are going to show up because of a Facebook event page. It got to a large amount until the government actually noticed it, And there's a theory because there wasn't just one party. They made multiple parties that weren't actually on the border of Area 51, because a lot of people were like, well, hell, I'm not going to go down there and stand in the desert. I'd rather go to Vegas and party instead, you know? And so there were multiple parties, or get, you know, that they named the raid on Area 51 to detract people away from the border. And largely it completely worked. There was hardly anybody that actually showed up down there. And people kind of laughed at the idea of, yeah, right, mate, but the government wouldn't spend money to keep people away from the border. And I'm thinking, yeah, maybe they would. Like, it wouldn't be a whole lot easier just to throw a bunch of dance parties than to send a bunch of troops down to the border?
Yep. Well,
you know, so I think that seems like that makes sense. Hey, let's get Budweiser and a bunch of people to do this giant rave over here at Area 51, you know, over here in Vegas. And so I think if they think to do things like that, you know, are they ahead on other stuff, I guess? Like, so I guess my question, to jump to the point and get to the chase, is how many people that are currently on YouTube, or maybe even have websites thrown, that we're all listening to get our news nowadays? Keeping in mind, everybody out that don't know this, CNN has had their own subscription service for a year, their own app, their own Plus service, and they got like 10,000 subscriptions in a year. That is abysmal,
oh man, they're so embarrassed. Tim Pool's Chicken City has more viewers than CNN Plus.
Dude, I'm watching guys, you know, who make video game, who make videos about board games and shit that get better viewership than that. And I guess the whole point is, there's like, if we think that Project MK Ultra and stuff like that exists, and maybe they threw a rave in the desert to keep people from going to Area 51, how many of these YouTube channels and Spotify channels are we listening to were maybe not outright created by the government, but maybe uplifted because, you know, I'm saying, like, I'm not taking a side like Republican or Democrat, but how many of these people are either the next wave of Anderson Cooper, who's a Rothschild or a Vanderbilt or whatever, just changed his name to be, he was in the CIA,
right? He's Gloria Vanderbilt's son. Yeah, and he was in the CIA. He is in the CIA, I imagine. He's a journalist.
Like, what if the Paul brothers are just CIA? You know what I'm saying? Well, like, what if Tim Pool is actually CIA?
any of them could be. I mean, realistically, but I don't see how that would. If the CIA does the kind of things that I've seen the CIA do in general, I don't see how that would further any of their goals. But you know, they may just be playing 5D chess with me.
Well, the whole point of it is, like, we talked about ricochet theory, that was your name for it, but like,
it's your theory.
My theory was like, that was
the
your
great
name,
ricochet.
My theory. They're trying to inject so much lefty craziness in there to make the left look as crazy as possible, to cause the right to overreact. And so I would think that if you're going to want the right to react, you would want to give people the correct talking heads, you know, like Tim Pool, agree with him or don't agree with him. I used to watch Tim Pool quite a bit back then. I've not watched him in quite a while now. But the reason I even liked kind of getting my news from him was because he was palatable. He was easy to listen to. You know, he wasn't super, super opinionated. Like, he would just kind of read it off, and you knew you could actually, you know, that's kind of like why I like Jimmy Dore and a couple other ones. You could listen. You knew they weren't lying to you. They weren't trying to sell you something. At that same time, what if the government just knew that that's what I needed? You know?
They knew that you would respond to that. Well, hey, real quick, before we get...
Think what the name's that. Tim Pool, Dore, Jimmy Dore.
No.
Fuck it. Go to the next one. Okay? If I go too far down the rabbit hole.
Hey, that's what the people are here for, Tim, is to see you go down the rabbit hole. Let me go chasing after you going, Tim, no! You've gone too far! But yeah... real quick, I put this in the description, so I don't have time to go over this and still get off of here before an hour. So just go and read this article, Love Me Tender and Poison Pills, Unpacking the Elon Musk Twitter saga. I've got it in the description. It's very interesting. Look at this crazy guy, this crazy, awkward billionaire in a cowboy hat and aviators who lives in Texas. I mean, making rocket ships. It's crazy. So... read the story about this. I think it's very interesting. At least to me it is. But I put it in there for you to see. Now, on to other business. I was going to go into another Elon Musk story, but I'm going to skip that, and I'm going to take you to something that's just a whole hell of a lot of fun for me. And I don't know if you remember, there was a lot of people who were Trump supporters who were passing around pictures that had Donald Trump photoshopped with a shaved head and a beard, and they're like, "Come on, Trump, you got to do it, Trump. You know, you would be badass with a bald head and a beard." And so, and then I also heard some.
2024 with a big bushy beard and
Yeah,
no hair.
could you imagine? Well, I think Kyle Dunnigan has an even better strategy for Trump 2024. Let me go ahead and share this with you. Let me make sure that I've got the desktop audio functioning properly. Hopefully, we won't get an echo on your voice, Tim.
I just want, as long as I can see it. As long as I can
I
see
think you
it.
may laugh a little, but all right, well, let me share my screen with you here before we do it. Oops, that's turning my video off. That's not what I want to do. Let me hang on just folks just a second so I can share my video screen, my screen with Tim here via Skype.
Via text.
And where is it?
He's got two
There
cans,
we
and a
There we
piece
go.
of string, and a piece of string.
I'm going to show you, Tim. Here we go. All right, y'all ready for this? Just fun. I hope y'all think it's hilarious too. But here we go. Trans Trump, everybody.
Thank you. I see you all looking around in disbelief. You can't believe your eyes. Can't believe it. But believe it, this is the biggest crowd we've ever had in the Trump Tower lobby. Biggest ever. So big. I'm here tonight to announce that I'm running for president, but this time as a beautiful woman, Trans Trump. So stunning, so terrific. Just like the best woman swimmer, Leah Thomas, there's going to be a bunch of fat losers in Trans Trump's wake. And I must say, Trans Trump is better than Guy Trump. For example, I have the best vagina in the universe. It was created from the choicest cuts of Trump steaks, aged to perfection. Where do you see this vagina? Where do you see it? And I'm so sassy, going out with the girls, having a good time, dancing. You know, don't try to fuck us, okay? Just buy us a drink and then go, okay? Just go. Also, every 3 weeks, I become an absolute lunatic until my cycle is over. That's it for me. You gotta vote Trans Trump. If you don't, you're transphobic. You got no choice. You got no choice. You're in a tough spot, but you gotta do it. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America. I shoot my show alone in my house.
That's Kyle Dunnigan, everybody. You gotta love Kyle Dunnigan. We've just shared his work a couple times on the show. But yeah, so you're in a tough spot, okay? What do you think? Trans Trump 2024?
I couldn't see it. I couldn't
Oh
see it.
no! You'll have to watch it later, man. I shared it. It showed me sharing the Instagram directly, and I didn't share anything else with you because I wanted to make sure I shared that. Shit. Well,
It was fine. Everybody. It was fine. Everybody can watch
yeah,
it.
everybody else can see it.
I rewatched it on the replay. I thought that was funny. That's the point I'm saying. That's the point I'm saying.
Shit. Well, all right. Well, I'm gonna leave you with that. Any final words for us, Tim?
No, not really. I don't have anything. I feel like I should have something, but since I'm at a loss for words, I'll just say, Rudy toot toot, stick it in the poop.
All right. Words of wisdom from Tim. Thank you. We'll see you next time on.
What any ideas for Sunday? What any ideas for Sunday? Sunday.
Yeah,
Sunday.
that's a good idea to think of an idea for Sunday. I hadn't decided on a topic just yet. We are going to have Wednesday. We're going to have LaMichael Wilson. He's the Libertarian candidate for governor in Tennessee. Speaking of Libertarian Party,
Word on when AC's going to get back with you?
I'm sorry.
Any word on when AC's?
I haven't contacted him, to be honest. I just hadn't. I'm not sure if that's the way that I want to go with the show. So we'll see about that in the meantime. Maybe we'll get into that off the show. But all right. Well, we'll see you later, guys. We'll see you this coming Sunday at 10 p.m. We'll have a new topic for you. We'll have a local topic and a a more meta or national or global topic, if you will. So we'll see you then. Like, share, and subscribe. Share and subscribe if you have not done so. We appreciate you doing it. It helps the YouTube algorithm, helps us get new people to this to the channel. Hey, by the way, we did have I will say we got over 100 subscribers now, and the channel has over 5,000 views. Let's see. Let me see real quick here. Our content has been watched. Let me see how many hours, because it was 100 and up to 107 subscribers now. And give me just a second, folks. I'll tell you. In the last 28 days, we had 1,500 views, and I believe we're over 5,000 for the lifetime now. Yeah, 5,800 for the lifetime. And we're looking at watch time of over 1,000 hours of our over 1,100 hours of our content. People have watched him. People have watched us bullshit for 1,100 hours. So I think that's pretty cool. I appreciate y'all doing that, and appreciate you chiming in and helping to move the conversation along with your input in the chat, emails, and participating with us in events like our Sunday Gun Day. It was a lot of fun. I think we'll do it again in the future. I appreciate you guys. Again, like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. We'll see you live Sunday at 10 p.m. Later.
Whoop, whoop. Whoop, whoop.
Rudy toot in the boot. Isn't that what you